Hello, Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to a deck walkthrough. This was a walkthrough that was requested on my channel by one of my subscribers. She wanted to see my Tarot of Trees, and since this is the deck that I'm going to be working with this week, I thought this was a perfect time to show this one on my channel. So I'm just going to fuss here with my Palo Santo for a second so that it will behave. There we go. This particular deck is new to my collection, and so at the time I'm filming this, this is going to be my first week working with the deck, but it is adorable. So first I'm going to show you the box that it came in. So it came in this really lovely tuck box. It is one of the nicer tuck boxes. It doesn't feel super flimsy, and it does come with a little artist card inside that just says thank you for your purchase, and it gives you a link to the artist's website. I did purchase this deck on Etsy. This is a slightly smaller than standard deck. So let's talk about the size for just a second. I had to get up and actually pull something off of my shelf here. So this is the Robin Wood Tarot, which is a classic size. And then this is the size of the Tarot of Trees. So you can see it's quite a bit smaller. This is probably a poker size. I could be wrong on that. I'm not real good at playing card sizes, but that's my guess. And it's really wonderful. The cardstock is thicker, so this is like the 90s Llewellyn cardstock. And this is the Tarot of Trees cardstock. So it's a little thicker. It's also a little bit glossier. So that is the stock. Let's talk about the deck. First of all, this lovely bag that Peggy made me for it. But let me set that aside. And we're going to do a full flip through, and I'm just going to share some of my thoughts as we go through here. I think I am going to zoom us in though, because this is a pretty small little deck, and I'd like you to be able to see the cards pretty well. So let's bring you in. Hello, welcome to my tarot table, up nice and close. So in our Fool, we have this really cute situation happening here with what looks to be a young tree just on the cliff edge, leaning into the sky, the potential. I love this. And it's funny because this deck, I should name the artist. Dana Driscoll is the artist. This deck does do such a beautiful job of conveying the messages and the meanings of the cards through just trees, which I think is really fantastic. In the Magician, we have a really full and almost flamboyant looking tree with all the tools, of course, of the elements, the pentacle, the wand, the sword, and the cup. Beautiful High Priestess, and in the roots here you have each root holding a pomegranate, which is just lovely. I'm going to move my incense away a little bit so it doesn't block the view so much. There we go. So you still have the black and the white pillars, which is really lovely. Love that. In the Empress, look at all this bounty, this giant apple tree. Beautiful. Emperor. This is such a great Emperor to me. This tree is... Sorry, I had to move my incense even further because it was like attacking me. This particular Emperor is wonderful because he's clearly in charge of his domain. He is a big tree with all these little trees underneath. It's just, I think it's just brilliant. The Hierophant. Look at this knotted old tree. And we get this idea of not of legacy, but of history and of wisdom. The Lovers, intertwined, so beautiful. The Chariot. Even though a tree is rooted, we almost get this idea that this tree is just barely on the surface here. The roots don't seem to be dug deep, and it has all this movement with the wind and the branches bowing. Love it. Strength is growing out of the side of a cliff. How powerful is that? The Hermit. Love the little lantern here. Love this sort of almost desolate landscape we have that gives that sense of loneliness or aloneness. I adore this Wheel of the Year card because it has obviously all 4 seasons clearly represented in the trees. Adore it. Justice. This is great. We have a living tree and what looks to be a dead tree, and you get this idea of light and shadow imbalance. The Inverted Tree. This is neat because you can't quite tell if these are just empty branches or if this really is roots. You've got these leaves at the bottom, but those could be like a bush. It could be an optical illusion. but you still get that opportunity for a shifted perspective. The Death card, potent here. Temperance, sun and sea and this tree perfectly between the two elements. The Devil, you get bondage. I feel like we might be just a bit fuzzy, so I'm going to bring us out just a touch. I think we might get a little bit better focus. This artwork, I just love this artwork. The Tower, and we have a tree here that is kind of attached or a part of this structure, so both the tree and the tower are affected. I thought that was really interesting. The Star, the Moon. You still get this idea of a gateway or of the threshold of fear or the threshold of the unknown, which is something that I appreciate in some moon cards. The Sun with the beautiful sunflowers. You get that idea of growth and vibrance here. Judgment. There's this Anais Nin quote, and one day, let's see if I can get this right, and one day, nope, can't remember it. Somebody's going to be hollering at the screen, but it's about the risk to blossom, the risk to take that when we blossom. And this is kind of what this makes me think of, this idea that in order to actually grow and evolve, we need to be willing to break out of the comfort zone, which in this case is that initial sprouting out of the comfort of the earth, the comfort and safety of the earth. And suddenly you're exposed to the wind and the rain. There's so much to read here. The World. Of course, I love this one. Ace of Cups. Love the Bounty here. And because this is almost a little bit pippish, there's plenty to see, I think. We have these two trees intertwined, each holding a cup. That, of course, has traditional Rider-Waite-Smith meaning, but you could also take that in a pip direction because there's no people. The 3 cups together, joined together. The 4 of Cups, we have that emotional stability. I like that you've got one cup flows into the next, into the next, into the next, and so on. You could definitely find some fun things to read into that image. In the 5 of Cups, we have broken branches and dropped cups, but then, of course, 2 remain. In the 6 of Cups, these seem to all be holding like just blossoms, just overflowing blossoms. The 7 of Cups with all these different types of trees. I love this. You've got like a maple and an evergreen and a deciduous and a little bonsai. Love it. The 8 of Cups. You get this feeling of moving away from the establishment or away from the established. There's this isolation from what's been built here, which is really interesting. The 9 of Cups. I adore this card. It is the most human looking one of all, but it just takes me right where I want to go with the 9 of Cups, which is that place of contentment and comfort, emotional comfort. The 10 of Cups, we have the archway here and this very full, well-established, happy little tree. Oh, a happy little tree. Bob Ross would be so proud. The Page of Cups. I love that the Page of Cups is in the middle of this rushing waterfall, just like totally soaking in the element. Or the cup is, rather. The Knight of Cups here, you get that idea of flow and of almost like gentleness. The Queen of Cups. The cup is just a part of her. And the King of Cups. Ace of Wands. We have that very strong tree that's very much about its trunk. That's where the focus of your eye goes in this painting. The 2 of Wands. For me, the 2 of Wands is about sort of an urge to take that next step, or that moment when you're starting to form a plan or an idea. The 3 of Wands is when you actually embark on that idea and start to see it take shape, and I think you really see the progression here between these 2 cards. But again, it's fairly pippish, which leaves it really nice and open for more numerological based meanings. The 4 of Wands. I love the stability and structure you see here with these 4 trees. The 5 of Wands, you get this idea that they're competing for the sunlight and the resources. 6 of Wands. I love this. This is very pippish to me. I don't necessarily see specifically like victory here, but you could see that in the sense if you look at the idea that all these like almost smaller trees are growing out of this older one, and this idea of overcoming hardship and having sort of won and thrived in spite of it. So I guess it's there. The 7 of Wands. I love this defense. These trees seem to be standing defending this town or this village. The Eight of Wands. This is missing some movement for me. It does look like just the side of a tree with all the branches going out to the side. It does bring you to mind of the Rider-Waite-Smith though. So if you just want a pip deck that's going to remind you of the meaning, this has the right sort of shape and angle to remind you of a Rider-Waite-Smith. Eight of Wands. The Nine of Wands. This is really interesting because if we think of the Nine of Wands being this figure here who's kind of, they've been through so much, but they're still finding a way to press forward. And the Ten of Wands. Look at how much this little seedling is going to have to get through in order to reach the sun. There's this idea of overwhelming obstacles and barriers in the way, but still, there's still an opportunity to learn and to grow. Love it. The Page of Wands. I love this with the butterflies, and you get this idea of creativity and expansion. The Knight of Wands. This cracks me up because it literally looks like this tree is like taking a walk down the road, which makes sense for the Knight of Wands, you know, taking off on an adventure, getting outside of your comfort zone. Our Queen of Wands, we still have the little well, usually I think it's sunflowers, but we have some daisies here, and we have this sweet little cat, which just, again, brings you right to mind of the Queen of Wands in the Rider-Waite-Smith. And the King of Wands, this is really interesting. You have this idea of sort of I almost get this feeling, even though that's not really how trees grow, but I get this feeling that there's just all these different paths, and the King of Wands has explored a lot of those and maintains this like vision for the future. The Ace of Swords, just cutting right to the heart of the matter. The Two of Swords. I don't know that I love this. The swords are sort of bearing down on this little tree, it looks like, and he's got, his leaves are falling. So this looks a little darker than how I would normally see the Two of Swords, which is a difficult, like, time when you're trying to sort something out. But I don't know that I see it quite this, this looks a little bit more downtrodden than I think I would like to see my Two of Swords. Well, that's extra bloody in our Three of Swords. Not sure how I feel about this one. I mean, it gets the message across, but it seems a little overly dramatic for the three, if I'm being honest. The Four of Swords, you definitely get this idea of rest. And this kind of would remind me also, I think, in a reading to lean into the supports that are available around you, to not necessarily feel like you have to do it all by yourself, because I feel like this tree, normally it's responsible for holding its own weight up, but it has this opportunity to rest on what's around it. The Five of Swords. Again, this seems really dramatic to me. Normally we would see somebody holding a few of the swords and a couple are left behind, they've dropped them. I don't know. It definitely gets that conflict across for sure, but it does, again, it feels a little almost Ten of Swords-y in a way. The Six of Swords. I love this idea of the swords off in the water. I think in a lot of ways this is going to feel very Pip-like to me, with just enough to, and I've said it before, but just enough to remind me of the Rider-Waite-Smith meaning. The Seven of Swords. Again, very Pippish. The Eight of Swords is really interesting. We still get this idea of being sort of surrounded and there being a wound. This is what it makes me think of as a wound, not a blindfold. I don't know why, but it just makes me feel like this idea of almost like of being overprotective of oneself or overhung up. That's interesting because that's not normally where I would take the Eight of Swords. But it is, I mean, it's supposed to be a blindfold, but of course trees don't have eyes, so tricky. Our Nine of Swords, again, this is like an upright Ten of Swords to me. I feel like we're missing that idea of fear of, I would have liked to have seen almost like a tree with some clouds around it and like a chainsaw, or like something that the tree would be nervous about or anxious about. Yeah. And then of course we have our actual 10 with the tree fallen. And of course trees don't bleed, so that's interesting. I don't love the blood in a in a tree card. The Page of Swords, I like this. You get that similar posture that we see in the Rider-Waite-Smith Page of Swords. Oh, I keep getting lower and lower here. Sorry about that. The Knight of Swords, that movement. And you can definitely see a season here. We get lots of fall through the Knight of Swords. I'll check that out in a second, actually. The Queen of Swords, love that. And the King of Swords I like too. You get this sword in the stone and this king is about to lift the sword. So that's kind of a cool reference there. And then finally we have the Pentacles. Opportunity in the Ace. Balance in the 2. Very Pippish here. Collaboration in the 3. I can definitely see that here. Or skill. The 4 of Pentacles. The 5, that's interesting. You can see almost like this tree is desperately in need of water, and it's just right here if it could only get to it. It's the opportunity or the hope it needs to find is in the water next to it. The 6 of Pentacles. I love that these little squirrels are like getting what they need from the tree, so you get that idea of give and take. Sorry, I keep lowering it. I'm sorry. The 7 of Pentacles. It's the winter time. It's time to hibernate and to just wait. The 8 of Pentacles. I really enjoy this with the sort of stepping stones on the pathway, but I don't know that I'm getting the mastery from this. Again, I think a lot of this is going to be pips for me. I've got a dog that wants in. Let's see how insistent she gets. The 9 of Pentacles. I like this. All of the resources are there and they can be enjoyed and they're safe. There's definitely a feeling here of having almost that sort of protection around your resources like we see with the garden and the wall. The 10 of Pentacles is definitely that idea of sort of full bounty and like lots is around this. Lots is around. I don't know how to say this. Generational legacy. I see that here for sure. The Page of Pentacles. You get this idea that this little tree is going to have to be resourceful to survive. The Knight of Pentacles. The Queen of Pentacles. I love this. This is very protective, which is something I really see in the Queen of Pentacles. She's our nourisher. She's the person that wants to just take care of the people around her in tangible ways. Our King of Pentacles. Very well established. And then there is an extra card, Regeneration. So that is the Tarot of Trees. I'm going to just zoom us out here again and let my dog in before she riots. Come on in. Come on in. All right, there we go. And let's just take a look at the seasons really quickly. I'm going to bring us out a bit. And let's just see. So through the majors, we of course see all the seasons represented, or at least several different seasons. Yeah. Okay, so in the cups, we have lots of flowers. So I would see this potentially as spring, but we'll see what comes up here. So there is our cups. Yeah, I think that cups are spring. The wands here look like full summer with this bright, shining summer sun. I thought so. The swords appear to be fall. Look at the coloring here. Yeah. And of course then our pentacles are going to be winter. Look at that. So that's really cool. And I feel like this would be a really neat mechanic to pull in if you wanted to do timing. So if you wanted to do a reading and remember really easily which suit was which season, this would be really wonderful for that, because you could go, okay, well, this is clearly spring, clearly summer, clearly fall, and clearly winter. And so you could pull that into your readings for timing-based questions. That could be really useful if you had a question about timing, to pull a deck like this that has that so clearly visible. You could even use this, now that I'm thinking about it, in such a way where the client asks a question and you answer their question, but you pull this out separately to look at timing. So very cool. I really enjoyed walking through this deck. Thank you for hanging out with me. I hope that you enjoyed this. Let me know down below if you have this deck or if this is a deck on your wish list. I would love to hear your thoughts on it and whether or not you enjoyed this walkthrough. As always, I love to hear your feedback. Thanks for hanging out with me. Remember to like, share, subscribe. If you want to book a reading, my Etsy shop link is down below. And I look forward to talking to you all again very, very soon. Have a good night. Bye-bye.